Welcome to the VBSC Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Herceg, and this is the #1 podcast in the world for volleyball strength and conditioning. And I can say that confidently because I believe we are the only podcast in the world dedicated specifically to volleyball strength and conditioning. And I'm here with the majority of my coaching staff today. We are missing Coach Cece, but we got Coach Gerry, Coach Sarah, and Coach Dion. And today we are going to expand on a little bit of one of the topics from our last group podcast episode, and that is going to be all about in-season training because we have a lot of clients kind of coming up on the summertime where a lot of them prioritize a lot of these beach tournaments or these grass tournaments. And so today we're going to talk about a bunch of different things as far as preparing you for some of those tournaments. So what should your in-season training look like? How should you structure your workouts? What should your nutrition be like depending on your goals, as well as your nutrition for tournament weeks and tournament days? And then what to do when you have these massive 3-day tournaments that we've got a lot coming up between adult nationals, Waupaca Boat Ride, all these different things, these multiple day tournaments. Like, how do you manage that, right? And this will come out right before nationals. So this will be perfect timing. Should be like the Wednesday before nationals. So hopefully you can take a couple tips from that. And because this is, the strength and conditioning is mostly what we talk about, I kind of want to start on that. And I think like the biggest thing we have to do in situations like this is sort of establish like the definition of some of these terms, right? Because like in season for the clientele we work with, which is like adult volleyball players, like they don't necessarily always have a season per se, right? So Dion, professional indoor player, has a season, but it's what, like 9 months long, right? So, there's a big difference between that and a high school boys high school player who their season is like 3 months long in where we are in the spring, right? So, or the normal clientele we get who they just play year round. And we were just talking about this. Gerry was asking some really good questions before we started recording about like, what if people don't have a season? And so we can kind of start with that sort of thing. So you can decide for yourself, like, when is your quote unquote season? When do you want to focus on? And then how do you structure your training around that, right? So Gerry, do you want to start by like revisiting those questions really quick, just so we can get them recorded?
Yeah, so the main thing is most of our athletes, 80-90% of them, they're mostly playing a tournament once every month, once every 2 months. So it's like, how do they decide whether it's like really in season or if they should really dedicate a lot of their efforts towards like the off season kind of training?
Yeah. And so there's a couple things I would say about that. And one of them is like, so this is something I didn't even say before, but if they're only playing a tournament once a month or once every other month, we actually probably don't need to put them in any type of in-season training sort of phase because their competition isn't frequent enough to require like a completely changed program design that we're going to talk about in a little bit. Now, what we want to do just from a periodization standpoint, which is like how we focus the structure of our workouts, is most of our clients are going to have a period that they care about more, or maybe they have a tournament that they care about the most. Like right now, I'm prepping for a boat ride, like Waupaca Boat Ride. We've got a lot of clients who are prepping for adult nationals coming up in a week. And so, what we can do is we can use that, even if it's not in season, that tournament as sort of the foundation that we structure our periodization around. For someone who's got a season like Dion, we can structure around like playoffs or like end of the season, where it's like the beginning of the season just doesn't matter as much as the end of the season does in a lot of different ways, right? So we can kind of structure around that. The other thing we typically tell our clients is like, just to decide like if they care about indoor season more or if they care about outdoor season more, and that at some point during the season, they should play less volleyball and sacrifice a little bit of volleyball performance to spend a little bit more time in the weight room. That way, when they get, again, more to that season that they typically care about, they can actually improve year over year as opposed to just like continuing to be the same level of player because all they're doing is playing a lot of volleyball throughout the year. And then what was your other question?
Oh, did I have another one?
I thought there was a second one where I was like, hey, save that for the podcast. And it was related to it, and I don't remember what it was. But if you think about it, we'll come back to it. So it was very related to that. Sacrificing, I think I just answered it, sacrificing time during part of the year where they sacrifice volleyball performance to focus on the other half. I think it was related to that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll be good. So yeah, Dion, I kind of want to throw this over to you before we get into the structure because you do have your weird 9 month long season, and with you kind of running your own training, like how did you structure that as far as like ideally peaking for postseason?
Yeah, so I think with me, for the most part, I ran through this year going through like 3 days a week with the upper lower full. Um, and I found that with the practice volume that I had and having games on the weekends, it was a pretty good sweet spot going through that, and I had enough time to recover in between training sessions, while not being too fatigued for the games on the weekend. Uh, from time to time, I also threw in, I know we do this with our clients too, is going through like the preparation workout like before the games. So sometimes for me, because I was only th training 3 times a week, I was going through the preparation workout as well, like the day before or the day of the game. So I think that that probably is the way that I would say it's it can be efficient to do it that way during the season, especially when it's 9 months long. With the 3 days a week, the way that we do them. The other way I would say is probably going like 2 days a week, which I'm running through with like some of my clients now who have that longer season, is just 2 full body days a week. And it's mostly the same as how we would do 4 days a week or 3 days a week, but just condensed more into 2 days a week still the same good meat and potatoes, but just in 2 days a week. And I think that that is my answer.
Thank you. Yeah, that kind of leads us really well into like how we structure like a more traditional in-season training philosophy, right? And I came up with this like within our membership, we do have an in-season program, and I started really focusing on this more so when I was like working with a men's college team in person at Baldwin Wallace. And I worked with them for 4 years, and I was very adamant with the coach that they do lift during the season. And so we would do generally two per week. I couldn't convince them to do the prep day, but the prep day is something that I kind of came up with because like I knew how it made me feel. And sometimes I would even do it like the day of a tournament. If the tournament didn't start till like noon, then I would go do the prep day in the morning. But we'll get to that. The way we typically structure the in season is you like I like to say it's like 2.5 workouts a week. Where the first workout, let's say you played on the weekend, first workout is Monday. It's going to be a full body day. It's like a partial kind of like high rep blood flow recovery day, and then like a regular lifting session after that. Then on Wednesday is like our most traditional lifting day. It's going to be our heaviest day of the week. It's where we're really putting in like the most amount of work. And then, for example, Friday would be our preparation day, which is like our half day, right? And the prep workout is really designed to help you kind of potentiate and maybe play a little bit better and feel a little bit better for competition the next day, or like I said, same day, right? And so it's something that's very volleyball specific, like a Cossack squat, where we're doing a lightweight, but it's a lot of mobility. We're doing explosive exercises that are not super high impact. So, like, the only jumping we might do would be like pogo hops or like some kind of leaps. But we could do kettlebell swings. We could do different med ball throws. Again, that are explosive, but they're low impact. And then we'll do some core work, and then we'll do like some mobility and stretching and everything like that. And we've gotten probably more direct feedback on that workout than like any other thing, where it's like they're like, I felt so good like after doing that. Because so many people are worried about like, I don't want to be sore for my tournament, I don't want to be tired for my tournament. And that's a real issue if you do your workouts the wrong way. But if you have a workout that's specifically designed to be done the day before the day of your playing, then you're going to feel even better. So that's our typical plan for that. Might be some mobility and recovery days on the in between. And then, like I said before, if there's not a competition that weekend and we're not going to do that prep day, we just have a separate full body day that we would do on that Friday instead. So some clients do it like that, where it's like 3 full body days. Some clients do it upper lower full. Just depends on like what works better for their unique situation and how that works. And then I guess the other thing, because there's some other things we've talked about as far as like exercise selection for in season two. And really one of the main things we're trying to focus on are like don't like maintain as much strength and power as you can through the season. Ideally, we can increase a little bit, but we just don't want to decrease. And then staying healthy, right? So some really big switches that I'll always make is like we'll do partial range of motion in season, where it's like we're not doing heavy, deep back squats in the season just because of like the higher soreness that comes from it, the higher injury risk for like lower backs and things like that. So it's like always going to be partial range of motion. And the way that I like to think about things is if it's heavy, it's going to be a shorter range of motion. If we want it to be a bigger range of motion, it's going to be lighter weights. So like an ATG split squat, an ATG Cossack squat, even like an RDL, which is like a pretty big range of motion. Like if we're going to go heavy, I like to reduce the range of motion and not like really push the stretch on it for people. Go like maybe just below the knee. Or we do back extensions where it's like a bigger range of motion, but it's lighter, something like that, where we're just trying to reduce injury risk and allow people to just get through their competitive season. So, Sarah, I know I don't know if you unmuted, but I did want to ask you too, because you work with a lot of like the high school population. And for those who don't know, Sarah is in Canada. I don't know if it's exactly the same as the US. One of the biggest gripes with kind of the girls' high school situation is like they're constantly playing and have no real off season. Is that the same thing with you guys? And then how do you like, as a coach, how do you manage that?
Yeah, very similar. So I love everything you've said. Lots of wisdom there, especially for our like adult and like college athletes. But then I think of like I'm working with the high school age group, and these girls are still growing. And so I find having them in the weight room 3 times a week, it's not functional for at this age group right now, at least while they're still stretching up. Like some of them, maybe they've stopped growing, maybe like 17, 18-year-olds, it's a bit easier. But I have found, so some of my athletes are on the court 4 times a week on non-tournament weekends. Now to have them in the gym 2 or 3 times, it's actually, we have seen some injury out of it. Some like groin strain, right? They work legs and then the next day they're jumping and now they've, right? When I had a groin strain and I'm like, okay, like she's growing. And so it's kind of, you just have to take some of those other factors into account. So what I have come to do is, for those who want, I do a 1 time a week specific strength training and jump training with them, which is, and then they're 4 times a week on the court. So that is one thing I have found that helps to balance it out. Like you said, there are times where the season is not quite as intense. And this is where I find we can get in the in the gym more and get more jump training more. I do have some of them jump training 3 to 4 times a week kind of in that season. So that would be kind of just like tryouts have just happened. And now we're kind of waiting for like the season to really establish. Kind of like what you said, like times when you have some more downtime or not as specific tournaments haven't started yet. And so you have more time, more energy. Your joints aren't quite as sore. You're not quite as fatigued. And that is more when I push the weights a bit more, push the jump training a bit more. But then as we transition into like tournaments every weekend for 6-7 weeks in a row, I don't have them doing weight training in that specific season. And then like now we're coming to nationals this week. And then we've got like Team Manitoba stuff coming after that. For those who are like Canadians, I'm not sure what Americans do if they have like summer special leagues, that kind of thing. And so you're right, it just keeps going. So then it's about managing their time best and how can we get some gym workouts in, jump training in while still maximizing their court time.
Yeah, and I want to be very specific on something you said because you're mentioning athletes growing. We are not saying that lifting weights will have any effect on your growth because it does not. It's very well established that lifting weights at a younger age will not stunt your growth. I know that was like a big myth and it still persists. She's talking more about like just overall volume of work being done.
Yes, like demand on the muscles. Yeah.
Yeah. She's not saying that because they're still growing, it's going to affect their growth. She's just talking like growing comes with growing pains, right?
Yes.
And so she's just trying to mitigate the total load on top of that, total stress on top of that as well. So yeah, it's tough. That's one of those things where it's like when we don't directly work with that population a lot anymore. But one of those things where it's like you just have to pick a couple times of the year where you focus more on volleyball. Or I'm sorry, focus more on weight training. Like, volleyball has to take a little bit. I know you're still playing, but you have to understand, like, if you never spend time in the weight room, like, you're never going to make the improvements that you should. So there has to be times in there where it's more dialed in on the weights, and then sometimes in there where it's more dialed in on the volleyball. And that's just the way it has to be. But I do want to transition to the next topic because want to make sure we have time for it, and that is nutrition. And nutrition is one of those things, especially like tournament day nutrition, tournament prep nutrition, where I have spent so much time trying to dial in like exactly what works the best for me on tournament days. And I don't think a lot of people do that. They sort of just eat whatever's available or eat like what they think they're supposed to eat. And so, with limited time to get through this and the 3-day tournaments, I want to really like put some emphasis on this and get some input from you guys. So I basically spent like 2019 through 2021 or maybe 2022, like experimenting with a lot of different food and drink on tournament days to see what allowed me to play the best volleyball. And some big things that I came up with is like, I basically recommend almost no protein during tournament times. The only time is like if you have a really long, you have a long sit and you have enough time to fully digest something like a sandwich or like a wrap or something like that. But like eating protein bars and stuff like that, completely irrelevant. Drinking protein shakes, it's just like it's not useful. It's just going to be sitting in your stomach. You're never going to be like fully digesting it. And you're not even getting the benefit of the protein, which is like recovering your muscles and healing your body, because it's not going to happen in that short of a window, right? So I just don't think it's necessary. Before the tournament, sure. For breakfast, depending on start. After the tournament, absolutely. Like go ham on some protein, right? But during the tournament, I found the best thing for me is just like a mixture of fast digesting and slow digesting carbohydrates and like healthier fats, like trail mix is like a go-to for me. So some of my go-to things are like bananas for sure. Rice cakes with peanut butter or rice cakes with peanut butter and honey is like great. Oatmeal bowls, like I said, trail mix that has like some, candy and things in it for that faster digesting sugar with the fat to kind of slow things down a little bit. Literal candy or candy bars. Honey is super beneficial. It's like my hack that I tell everybody about, like keep some honey in your bag at all times, gym bag and volleyball bag, if you ever just need a little energy boost. And then that's pretty much what I eat most of the day. And like I said, if it's, I've got a 2 or 3 game sit, or sometimes, but if I know it's going to be a long time between pool play and playoffs or whatever, maybe I'll have a wrap, maybe I'll have a sandwich that's going to be on the healthier side, not super greasy or anything like that. And then fruit. I don't know if I said fruit, bananas, grapes, blueberries, that type of stuff. Not like super, super high fiber foods. You don't want like digestion issues from really high fibered stuff or a lot of it, but just having some, it's hydrating, it's got the sugar, it's got some vitamins and minerals. It's great on top of the hydration, which we'll get into too. But, Gerry, with you being another beach volleyball player, good beach volleyball player in Florida, like what's your tournament day strategy look like nutrition wise?
Nutrition wise, it's definitely a huge emphasis on the carbs. So with breakfast, or a lot of my whole game day nutrition, it's like stuff that I know is a good carb source and that my body's used to. And then I just have a lot of it because especially in summer tournament day, I can burn up to 7,000 calories. So it's like, if you think about just consuming 7,000 calories in a day, that's like abnormal, but you're going to be on a court and you got to try your best to fuel as much as you can. So I like to front load some carbs in the morning. So either like a bunch of sourdough toast or some rice, and if it's a complete meal, whatever that looks like. And then throughout the day, I'm heavily reliant on bananas. I do that every time I play pickup, every time I play tournaments. So like my body's really used to using bananas as fuel. So tournament day, I'll go through like 6 to 10 bananas and then miscellaneous other stuff. Occasionally the honey right before a set, or just whatever I can get my hands on. And that's usually my carb source for the day, or my old reliables for sure.
You said something very important that I want to bring back up. And this is a tournament week rule. And that's no new stuff, period. So, you talk about eating foods that your body's used to, drinking things your body is used to. A huge mistake people will make is, the day before a tournament, they'll go eat at a restaurant they've never been to. They'll eat a meal they've never had. And you have no idea what effect that is going to have on your body. And now you could be running to the toilet between every game on tournament day, and you just don't know. So it's just the blanket of no new stuff, that no new foods, no new drinks, no new supplements, no new exercises, no new recovery protocols that you've never tried. Like that's not the time to find out what happens if you try something, right? And the worst thing you want to do is like, oh, it's tournament week. I want to peak. I'm going to do this explosive exercise that I've never done, and then you like tweak something. And it's like, well, that was stupid. Now I can't play my tournament, right? So it's just like the blanket of no new stuff, I think is just a rule that everyone who is listening to this should live by, or that's just not the time to experiment. Stick with, like you said, old reliable, the tried and true stuff that you've been doing, and finding out kind of what that is. And I guess there had to be some experimenting for me, kind of like I was saying, but sometimes I would do that like at leagues. So it's like I'm going to a league, like what happens if I eat this between games? How do I feel? I remember this is a really specific example. 2020 or 2021. Instead of honey in between games, I brought with me some agave, which is again just straight sugar. And it made me like super irritable while I was playing. And I'm very mellow while I play, like super mellow, try my best to be like kind of just even keel. And I was just like getting really upset while we were playing, like frustrated at things I didn't typically get frustrated at. So the first time it happened, I was like, yeah, whatever, it's one-off thing. I don't know, maybe I'm having a bad day. Then the next time that I tried to have agave, when I played, it happened again. And I'm like, that is not a coincidence. Like there's something that my body is, where this is interacting with my body in a way that it's just like shortening the fuse on my temper or something. I don't know what it is. So I just stopped doing it, right? So there was some experimentation involved in that, and honey became the thing. It's like honey, Snickers bars go to for sure, bananas, that type of stuff where I've just found that it works really well. But yeah, no new things, no new stuff. And you're totally right. When you said 7,000 calories, I was like nodding my head because I remember like looking at my Whoop, which not 100% accurate, but it is oftentimes like 6,000 to 7,000 calories for like a doubles tournament. And so like trying to make up all of that food, trying to make up all of that hydration is really, really hard. And just to touch on hydration really quick before we get to the last topic, I will always bring 2 separate containers of liquid with me. One is going to be just my water, and it's typically like a gallon, between 1 to 3 gallons of water, depending on the tournament, where it is, if I can refill or not. And then another large bottle that I'll mix my electrolytes in. And I don't have them in the same thing because I have made that mistake as well, where it's like now all throughout the day, I'm drinking, electrolytes in my water. And if I start to cramp, then I can't get a higher concentration, or like now I'm drinking way more electrolytes than I should because it's constantly in my water, then my stomach gets bloated. So I've learned to have them separate. And so I can drink my water while I'm eating or whatever. I can have my electrolytes. And that has been like a total game changer for me too. Last thing I'll add on that is I do always bring a jar of pickles to every hot tournament that I go to. As someone who is chronically prone to cramping, that is my like, in case of emergency, break glass, go drink some pickle juice when you start to feel it coming on. And it's a nice thing to just have just in case. So Dion, I saw you nod into that. Do you have the same issue?
I don't have the same issue with cramping, no, but one thing that I can say that is really good for that too is the Element salt packets, or whatever you call them. I don't know how to
Electrolyte packets.
actually describe them. Electrolyte, thank you. Yeah, those are really good. The other thing I was going to add is that I think one thing that a lot of people might go through during tournament days sometimes is uh, if they do come underprepared, sometimes they have to go and get food somewhere. For me, a really good option is just going to like Subway and grabbing like a 6-inch sub, because it's like it's not too heavy, but it also gives you a little bit of fuel that you can use a little bit later in the day. Um, I think that's great. And you already mentioned peanut butter and honey on rice cakes. I like them more in sandwiches, so I figured I would also mention that. And then there's one other thing I was going to mention, and I can't remember what it is. So if I remember, it will come back to me.
I'll give a quick shout out to my 3 favorite electrolyte supplement brands that I've used. Not affiliated, I don't think, with any of these brands currently. One of them is Element, I think is great. I personally stopped taking Element because it did kind of give me bloating in my stomach. It's because it has stevia in it and my body just doesn't react well to stevia. The other one is Relight by Redmond's Real Salt. That's the first one I ever used back in the day because we just got, when I worked for Lifetime, they gave us like a bunch of them. And so I was like the only one who used them. Currently, I take, it's called Lights. It's by ATH Sport. That's the one that I've been using for the past couple of years because it's the similar dosages to Element with different versions of the same ingredients. They will claim better versions of the same ingredients, but it uses monk fruit extract instead of stevia, and that's much better for my stomach personally, and that's going to change person to person every single time. Just want to touch on really quick, we did have 3-day tournaments in the notes here because we got a lot of those coming up. Again, Nationals coming up probably this weekend when you're listening to this. Pottstown is coming up, Waupaca is coming up, all these big 3-day tournaments. And so it's like, what do you do to prepare for that? The unfortunate aspect of it is there's not a whole lot you can do to prepare for it. The only thing you can really do to prepare for a 3-day tournament is to play subsequent 2 and 3-day tournaments to, just get your body used to that. Because there's nothing you can do in the weight room to prepare for that. There's really nothing like specific you can do other than just playing a lot of volleyball. And so leading up to that, the most amount of volleyball you can play to be physically prepared for that is what you have to do because there's nothing hyper specific you can do outside of that. We were kind of talking about some different just pain mitigation techniques you can do throughout the days and just like how do you maximize what little recovery you're going to get between days. And so big things are going to be like, make sure you're staying hydrated. Going back, like I think a rule for hydration is like, you really need to hydrate more than you think you do. Like sometimes I'm almost uncomfortable with how much water and things I drink, where it's like, if you're even a little bit thirsty, like it's a little too late. Eat a whole bunch of really healthy food as soon as that tournament's over and you've got some time, and then get a lot of really good sleep. Like I know some of these tournaments, they can have some of the party aspects to them and things like that, hopefully when you're done. But like high quality sleep is one of the best things you can possibly do. And then if you have the ability, like this is one of the only times where like ice can potentially be helpful because if you're doing ice packs or something like that, that's basically just reducing the inflammation and swelling enough to allow you to continue to play the next day, where it may negatively affect long-term injury healing. It may take longer, but it'll allow you to play again the next day. So ice bath, I think, is great. Like if you're going to your hotel room, you can, get some ice, throw it in the tub. Whole team does an ice bath or something like that, just to help with some of the inflammation. And again, make you feel better the next day. If you need to put some ice packs on your knees and your shoulder, this might be the only time where I would potentially recommend that. But otherwise, it's like nutrition, sleep, hydration, eat and drink more than you think you do, sleep as much as you possibly can, and get some really good warm-ups throughout the day. Outside of that, there's really not a whole lot you could do. So with our final couple minutes, do you guys have any input on just experiences on things that can help with these 3-day tournaments?
I have one piece of input for playing, like going into a 3-day tournament. And oftentimes, when you're going into a match or set, you kind of have a feeling about how the game's going to go. Or if this is your first day, if you think you're going to beat this team, you don't need to be taking a million warm-up swings. You don't need to be swinging as your first go-to attack every single game. So, like, if you know you're based on seeding, you're probably going to beat this team, then work on just getting the ball in, shooting the ball, anything like that. If you are going in, you're playing the number 1 seed, then obviously you got to go all out. But just being smart about how much energy you exert so that you can be able to last those 3 days if you need to.
Yeah, it just reminded me of one of my buddies. Shout out to Mike. I remember when I was in Appleton playing, and he told me, so he's a bit older. I think he's in his 40s now. So he was probably about my age when we were having this conversation. I'm 35. He's like, yeah, I don't swing in pool play. He's like, I only shoot in pool play because like it doesn't matter. Like everybody's going to playoffs anyway, and I want to save my shoulder. I always tell myself I'm going to do that. I never do that because I only care about hitting the ball hard. That's the reason I play volleyball. So I personally don't do that, but it's a good strategy. Like if like you're making pool play no matter what or something like that. Like I think the overarching theme there is like save your swings, right? Like save your shoulder for when you need to. Dion, you got anything before we sign off?
Nope, I don't think so. I think you guys pretty much covered it there, especially with only caring about hitting the ball hard.
is a theme that we like. So
Yeah.
awesome. Thanks for listening. Really quick, we already lost Sarah. That's okay. Just go through and let the people know where they can find you on social media.
Dion Lala on Instagram.
Gerry Plays Beach on Instagram.
Coach Sarah is Volleyball Coach Sarah on Instagram. I am the Volleyball Strength Coach on Instagram and YouTube, and VB Strength Coach on TikTok. This will be going up on YouTube and podcasting platforms as well. So if you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you subscribe to the channel, leave a comment, drop a like so that I know that people actually watch these. If you're just listening to the audio, please subscribe to the podcast. That would mean the world to us. And then, yeah, check us out on other social media channels, and we will catch you guys next week.